MAV's Coffee Clarity with Denise is brought to you in partnership with Drive Media and Consulting and their premier sponsors. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platforms and share. If you just found us, welcome. And if you're a regular, welcome back. Denise DiGrigoli has spent her life in the creative industries as an entrepreneur, helping people transform their visions into thriving businesses, working with individuals and teams to find their purpose and live their life vibrantly. On her pod, Denise delivers business intel and life hacks with wit and wisdom in short shots like a strong espresso with a solid sense of humor. Enjoy this episode of MAV's Coffee Clarity, and here's MAV.
My intern said, people are asking a little bit about where you come from and what makes you you and behind the scenes, and they want to know more about how did MAV become MAV? Well, I don't know, we're going to pull that off in a short shot because, MAV's at a level 6, my friends. Yeah, we don't really talk about our age. It's an unlisted number, but I don't know if we can do a short shot about MAV's life. So my name is Denise DiGrigoli. I always get a little flack about it. Is it DiGrigoli? Because in Western Mass, where I grew up, was DiGrigoli. Well, there's a reason for that. When we immigrated through Ellis Island and we were, part of the society, maybe people couldn't understand it as they say it with an Italian accent, DiGrigoli. Or maybe they just, you've heard the stories. They chopped the names. They said it the way they wanted to say it, They cut your name so you wouldn't look Italian. It could be any number of things. I don't know. But when I went to college in the city, I went to FIT, and my Italian teacher was like, you can't say DiGrigoli. It's DiGrigoli. It's of Grigoli, which is probably a town in Italy somewhere. So, yeah, grew up in Western Mass. Was very artistic in nature. Grew up with a family that grew their own food, sewed their own clothes, repurposed so many things. Upcycling, lux cycling was just a way of life. It wasn't even in vogue. It was just the way it was. Very community oriented. You knew everybody in town. The fire station was this big. The post office is still this big. And it was fun. But when you grow up in a small town and you feel like everybody knows your every move and you're creative and you get a spark of inspiration, you move. So that's the story went. My grandmother owned a business with her husband, and unfortunately he died very suddenly of a heart attack at 54, and she was left holding the bag. And she was 49 and I was 9, so I went to work with her, pump gas. We had gas customers, and they happened to be New Yorkers. And one of our New Yorker clients was Eleanor Freed, who at the time was the career placement department head. She had started the career placement department at FIT. She asked me where I was going to college. And I said, well, I don't really know. My parents, they don't really want me to go to college. It's one of those old Italian things. Girls don't need to go to college. You can marry that nice boy down the street. Anyways, I was so excited because actually FIT was one of the things that I wanted to investigate that was on my list. I didn't dare ask. No. Anyways, I read her book and I went and said to my grandmother, I really want to go to this school. And shortly thereafter, my grandmother had my uncle give me a lift down to the city, and I looked at the school and I was in. So that's a little bit about the creative background. It bears noting that the Frenches were our art teachers in the Berkshires, and they were very quietly internationally well known, but they were also very known in the Berkshires. And they offered a plethora of creativity in their art classes. And there was something for everybody, from loom weaving to illustration to mixed media to clay. They didn't miss a trick. And so I grew up there, and I went to FIT. And from there, I was in the fashion business for a while. I was in graphic design. I was in trade shows and events for a very long time, and experiential events. And then when I got together with Troy, we had art exhibitions and galleries, retail stores, and now an art restoration business. So that's a short resume. I don't know if that helps. We're in the 4-minute mark. But I've always enjoyed family business. I like to think of myself as sort of like self-employed, overjoyed working mom with Italian roots. I say, yeah, I'm on client calls and Zooms and strategies and teaching people all different kinds of ways to communicate and to build their brand. And, I'm also saying, take the dog out, go to the dry cleaner. You're going to be on time for that appointment. What is happening? Write it down. Write it down. So yeah, I can give a good pep talk, close a deal, and, make a badass meatball all at the same time with a nice red sauce and still keep my boundaries and keep the wheels on the bus. Now, in a short shot that I did regarding writing thank you notes, you'll see there's ways that I kind of chill out and settle down and refuel myself. And that's an active creative meditation reflection process. Over the years, I learned to ski. I learned to ski during level 4. I hadn't been on skis until my mid-40s, and that's thanks to my husband. Learned to ski. He had grown up skiing in the Berkshires, even though I never bumped into him. He'd come in from New York to ski as a kid. Skied on some of the mountains I grew up around. And then I learned to road cycle. I did the Josh Billings, which is a triathlon. I rode it with my cousins. One was the kayaker, one was the jogger, and I was the biker on the 27-mile piece. I learned to actually road cycle at level 5. What makes MAV is that, I had incredible people in my life that, always were very generous with their time. So I'm very generous with my time. I'm a firm believer that you should probably always give more than you receive. My grandmother would say you can't be a success until you teach someone else to be a success. And there's a seat for every cover. There's a seat for every cover. That's not what she said. She said there's a seat for every rump and a cover for every pot. That's Thursday afternoon. So when people say, it's too much multitasking, I just call it a Thursday. It's not a big deal. I think, what you give your intention to or your attention to makes the intention, or intention makes the attention. Either way, that's the way energy flows. And that's how I feel about life. I sort of feel like, you show up and do your best and allow things to come in and be sure to release things out that don't serve you. And like I said, always try to give a little bit more than you receive. Always try to feed the positive wolf, because one wolf is going to grow. The positive wolf or the negative wolf. Whichever one you feed is going to grow. These are all little, sort of little adages I kind of learned from my grandmother. Watching her sort of reinvent herself after my grandfather died into this lady that was running a business full-time that she probably didn't want to do full-time, frankly, but she did it. She ran it almost until the day she left from her hospice bed at level 8. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I went into consulting about 10 years ago. I opened a firm, Drive Media and Consulting. We help bespoke brands and industry shapers and change makers communicate their voice, build their brand, and drive their business forward with purpose. Everything I do, I like to say, is purpose-driven, and that comes from growing up in that small community in the Berkshires where people just naturally helped. Hey, I got a whole bunch of zucchinis. You want some? Oh my God, your car broke down? Let me go and get you. You need a ride to the doctor's? Not a problem. So I kind of operate that way. And, in sales, what we say is when somebody says to you, I don't have time, it means they don't want to make the time. Or they're so unorganized and not prioritized that they don't even know how to make the time. I'd venture to say, though, when someone says, I don't have the time, then they don't really want to make the time. That's not where their energy is going or intention. So I very much feel like I can always fit you in. I can always find a way to be helpful. And as I've gotten older, level 5, 6, whatever, I've started taking more time and really planning in some downtime for myself. That's when I learned to ski. I learned to road cycle. And in level 5, approaching level 6, I had learned to do paddleboarding and then graduated into doing yoga on paddleboards. So what makes me me is I challenge myself. I'm always saying, go right outside of your comfort zone, Denise. And it's a bucket list. It's not a dare. Now, sometimes I dare myself, but not necessarily a dare from someone else. I like to challenge myself because I believe it keeps my mind healthy, my spirit healthy, my body healthy, and I can be more creative. And the more creative I am, people always say, oh, creative, ooh, I don't have that muscle. Creative muscle doesn't go away. The more you use it, the more it grows, like any muscle. So I worked in Connecticut for many years. We've had retail businesses, gallery businesses. My husband is now running the art restoration business, and I'm running my consulting practice. And how Mav's Coffee Clarity came about was I practiced stage comedy with Christine O'Leary at the Ridgefield Playhouse. I started doing that November 2019, and it was really on my bucket list to pull myself out of the comfort zone. We were always going there to see different shows. My husband's an old rocker. He loves to play his guitars. I'm an old disco girl from way gone by, and we love music. I know the first concert I made him take me to when we were dating was Cher, and he's so like Led Zeppelin. But hey, when you're trying to reel someone in, you go to Cher. I've been to many shows, of course, that he loves as well. So I don't want to make too much fun of that. But anyhow, I got off the track there. I forgot for a minute what I was saying. Oh, stage comedy. So over at the Ridgefield Playhouse, and I meet Christine, and there's a cancellation in her class. Very hard to get into her class back then. And I did stage comedy November 19th, right before COVID. It was fabulous. Like she says, you shoot yourself out of a cannon. And, if you're a marketeer like I am and a business owner, you write copy and words very different than when you write it in comedy. You got to give it to the stand-up comedians, my friends. I mean, it takes like so many hours to write 1 minute of comedy. It's refining, it's editing, it's refining, it's editing. And I learned the craft. I really took myself out of my comfort zone. And even though I'm very long-winded and, some people call me a storyteller, actually someone, said that to me in not such a nice way. And, I took my hits along the way, thus saying thank you. You got to see the other episode about writing thank you notes. Anyways, I practiced stage comedy through COVID. We'd actually go online and have live in-theater presentations, and hundreds of people would come on the Zooms because people were so not knowing what to do with themselves during COVID. So I cut my chops on that. And then as COVID lifted, my consulting work and all work came back in a very different way and a little more strong than one would believe would have. And I thought, how can I go to nightclubs and get 10 minutes of stage time when I got to be up at like the crack of what to do my business? And I'm making poor Troy haul me here and haul me there, and I did love it, and I still do love it. And I have the greatest respect for everybody that does it because it's hard. And I thought, I've got to bring some wit and wisdom, some comedy into my podcast. And I had an old show on Hersham Acorn Newspapers, the Hand Network. We were live streaming long before it was in vogue. I had a show called The Daily Drive with Denise on Hand Network. And of course, COVID hit, and unfortunately, Troy's dad was ill and passed during the time, and just so many things were happening personally that when Hersham Acorn sold over to, I think it was Hearst Media, I'm not sure, I was able to keep my show, but I wasn't able to keep it going because of what was going on in society and with our family. So I tabled it and I did the comedy. It was that kind of fun. And then we were laughing. My stick on the stage was like overjoyed, self-employed, working mom with Italian roots. And I loved that. Told all the crazy stories about how everyone in my family made my hair stand on end and what that meant. And I had a ball with it. And I met so many great people in stand-up and in theater in general, just storytellers. The greatest people, just the salt of the earth. So I thought, I got to keep this going. I want to bring together people that are, got that tenacity, that grit, that creativity, and share their stories. They tend to be, creatives or entrepreneurs that come on Mav's Coffee Clarity. And the Mav name came from a couple of my daughter's friends. One day they were lamenting, they were so upset that someone was bullying Ava in middle school regarding her unibrow. Italian American, we got that unibrow, right? I say that's your superpower. If I'm giving you my eyebrow, my friends, right? And I was saying, why are these people talking about hair, body hair? Is this what we're reducing ourselves? Talking about body. This is your superpower, okay? As a person, I'll go as far as to say, Mom, you see someone going, like even my old Bichon Frise could read my eyebrows. Like, don't screw with my eyebrows. Or my messages from my eyebrows. So I said, wait a minute, what is wrong with this young lady? And where's her mother? Not teaching her any manners? I mean, come on, we're talking about hair here. So I said, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to go have some words with someone, okay? And one of Ava's friends was like, wow, Ava, your mom is a savage. Well, that was like the urban word back in the day in middle school, 10, 15 years ago. It's like on fleek. And so savage went to mom, Mav, Mavage. In other words, probably, what people know me for. I'm your advocate. I'm your advocate for all things good and positive and moving forward. So that became my stage name, Mav. And I thought, well, that's one way to bring it all together. Wit, wisdom, clarity, Mav. And then I thought, but it's really the maverick minds behind advocacy of any kind. And, championing your family, championing a business, a charity cause, yourself, right? Everybody's been a maverick for a minute, a moment, or a lifetime. And I like to tell those stories because it's people's stories that when you're listening to, you can find hope and inspiration, not necessarily a diagnosis or a solution, but you can find hope and inspiration, and maybe that infuses you or inspires you to move yourself forward, right? Goes back to what my grandmother said. Teach a person to fish, they eat for a lifetime. Feed them a fish, they just eat for that day. So that's a little bit of behind the scenes of Mav's Coffee Clarity. I've been a business owner. Wow, I had a lemonade stand with my friend Nicole in front of our house when we were like 10, selling lemonade for a nickel. The year we made $2 selling nickel lemonade, we thought we were the cat's meow. Definitely been a serial entrepreneur. I believe in challenging yourself and coming out of your comfort zone with being mindful of any risks. I'm not telling you to be crazy. And always being kind and thoughtful. Always 2 ears, one mouth for a reason, my husband will say. Put yourself in the other person's shoes is what I'll say. Try to flip the point of view so you can understand across the aisles, right? If you only vibe with exactly who's in your super community, you don't look outside your super community, maybe you're missing an opportunity to make change or to learn something new. So Mav's Coffee Clarity, we're wit, wisdom, clarity, one cup, one conversation at a time. At Drive, we help change makers and bespoke brands move themselves forward with authentic communication. What's my goal for it all? What makes me me? I just love seeing the joy in other people's faces when they figured out how to do something great for themselves or how to help someone else. I love spending time with good friends over good food. I'm a little bit of a foodie. I like making good food. I love laughing. Laughing solves so many problems, and it just creates such momentum in your mind and your body and helps you look at things differently. You can't not help yourself move forward when you're laughing, my friends. So I hope that answered some of the questions that our intern was asking us about. It's always like being raised humble. You don't just sit there and start pontificating yourself. But okay, I just did for 18 minutes. Peace out, my friends. Mav's really got to get back to work now.
Hey, that's a wrap for today, my friends. Thanks for listening, subscribing, and staying connected with me. Head on over to DeniseDiGrigoli.com and learn a little bit more about my creative and strategic consulting services. While you're there, drop your name on the contact page. Sign up for my bi-weekly brew. It's fresh ideas delivered to your inbox a couple times a month for clarity, creativity, and better communication. It's based on my 3 decades as an entrepreneur, helping other people and businesses move forward. It's great business intel and life hacks that you can use for work, life, and self-care. And come on, who doesn't need that nowadays? Have a great rest of your day. Peace Peace out, my friends. Mav has got to get back to work.